Hey everybody, this is TJR and welcome to another edition of CD versus Vinyl. This time around we're doing the show a little bit differently. We're not shooting in the living room like I normally do. And maybe that's because this edition of CD versus Vinyl is a bit more special and maybe even a little bit more epic. But first, I want to just say thank you. Thank you to everybody who has shown their support for this series by just saying in the comments how much they really appreciate the CD to vinyl comparisons. Maybe they've pledged a little something on Patreon for it. Just thank you very much. And the series has been away for a little bit, but we're back here with some more segments. And so this time around, as I said, a very special CD versus vinyl. We're going to be comparing the White Album by the Beatles, their ninth studio album from 1968. But for this CD to vinyl comparison, we are concentrating on the 2018 remix by Giles Martin and Sam. Some people pronounce it O'Kell. Some people pronounce it Okel. I like saying O'Kell. I don't know which one is right, but I've heard it both ways. Anyways, though, so for this one, I probably did a whole lot more listening than normal. Normally I just pick maybe a couple tracks off the album and go with that, but here I did quite a few more. And real quickly, of course, I have the CD version on the Super Deluxe set, CD set. Came out in 2018. Just a massive set with, of course, the album on 2 CDs. Then we have another CD that comprises the Escher demos or the Escher demos. And then we have 3 more CDs that have session tracks, and then a Blu-ray that contains, of course, high resolution stereo, 5.1, Dolby True, and the mono mix. So just a massive, massive collection here. I did, of course, an unboxing on this and also reviewed the remix as well. Talked about some of the session tracks. Did a couple of videos on that you can find here on the channel if you are interested. And as is usually my habit, I pick up the Super Deluxe edition of the remix on CD, and then I follow that up by picking up a copy of it on vinyl, which I have right here. And I still have my 2009 remastered edition. There we go. In most cases, I always have found the remixes to be much better than the original stereo mixes, although I did have some change of heart with the recent Revolver remix, and of course you can see that video. But with all the previous ones, I was pretty much like, okay, I'm in love with the remix. Why would I listen to these again? But I still keep these, though, because I know I want to be able to, from time to time, reference the audio. And also, you never know. My opinions could change. They have in the past. But here is the 2009 remaster of the original stereo mix. But for this video, I only listened to the remix on CD and vinyl. So let's get started here. And I'm going to start with one of my favorite tracks off the album, and one of my favorite Beatle tracks of all time, which is Dear Prudence. Dear Prudence. One of the main differences that I heard with this track, and I think you'll find that I kind of bring this up again in other tracks as well off the album, is that with the CD, every single instrument sticks out at you. Each instrument and vocal track feels very distinct and separated. Picture, if you will, like say you're listening to this musical space and you've got a guitar, another guitar, a bass guitar, drums, a vocal here, a vocal there, and everything is this separate entity floating in this musical space. And this is great because it allows someone like myself to better appreciate the different musical elements that make up the song. and allows me to follow. If I want to listen to just one instrument and just follow it throughout the course of the song, I can do that. I may be weird, but I enjoy doing that. I can, of course, also listen to it as an ensemble as well. Now, on the LP version, I can still hear all the changes made in the remix, but I would say that all of those separate tracks, they sit together more closely. Not clumped together, but more like I am in a music hall, hearing the ensemble play the track together versus separate, distinct musical parts. Now, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy or listen to the CD in the same way, hear it as an ensemble. But the CD, I have found, with this track and with many others, as you're about to find out, to be more conducive to better isolating the different music elements. And so this is a matter of preference. I will also point out that on this particular track, Dear Prudence, the lead guitar fills pop out more on the CD versus on the LP. But one thing that was startlingly different about this particular track on the LP versus the CD is that when I listened to the vinyl record on headphones, there are those background vocal ahs that you hear when Lennon sings the line, "See the sunny skies." And on the LP, listening on headphones, those background ahs, I swear, they felt as though they were coming from up behind me and then moving past me as they went past. And that was startlingly different. It almost felt like 5.1. And otherwise, though, I think both sounded great. It just depends on your preference. The continuing story of Bungalow Bill. Hey, Bungalow Bill, what did you kill? Both versions, CD and vinyl, were very enjoyable. But again, for critical listening, I would lean towards the CD, as I can better isolate and hear each musical instrument with greater clarity than I can on the LP. On the LP, I can still listen critically if I choose to and separate the different musical elements. It is a slightly harder job, but for just experiencing the groove of the song, I think I prefer the LP. Now, I warn you, this is a reoccurring theme that you're going to be hearing during this video. Let's move on to Happiness is a Warm Gun. Happiness is a warm gun. Again, the CD, better clarity, more crisp. Like I said, better isolation between the instruments. But on the LP, I feel like I'm more in the room with the band. So again, it's all about preference. Blackbird.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
Now, this is an acoustic track, and I discovered some real pros and cons when I compared these two. The acoustic guitar benefits from the extra clarity and presence that can be found on the CD. It has more of what I call that new string sound. But on the LP, Paul's vocals feel more like he is in the room with me, singing. So this is all about a trade-off. Which one do you prefer? The new string sound, that clearer, crisper acoustic guitar sound on the CD, or the warmer vocals that feel more like he's right there on the LP? Again, it's a trade-off. Your Blues.
Yes, I'm lonely. Wanna die.
Now, with this track, I found the biggest difference was the bass guitar. The bass guitar, while aggressively played, feels smoother and more natural on the vinyl record. It also tends to distort less at higher volumes than the CD version does. During the instrumental section, when the entire band is playing together and playing as aggressively as possible, there is this sound that I have experienced in the past when doing these comparisons, where the instruments feel more clumped, or perhaps I should say squashed together on the CD versus the LP. This difference is not huge, but it is definitely there when I compare them back to back. And some people refer to this as CD flatness, or the flatness they hear with CDs. And I've experienced this too, not in every single case when I've made these comparisons, but I do definitely hear this with this particular track. Now, CDs generally have more highs than LPs. They can contain higher frequencies. And that extra treble does make the electric lead guitar solo pop more on this track. But that extra treble also makes the solo, and I'm just referring to the guitar solo, sound more shrill. Between the two, I much more prefer to hear that shrillness scaled back by listening to the LP version. Again, your mileage may vary depending on your preferences and what system you're using, how you have it set up. So now that we are discussing extra treble, let's talk about Mother Nature's Son.
Mother Nature's Son.
During the verses, the additional treble that I've been talking about that exists on CDs and definitely exists on this CD version added a welcome amount of presence to the acoustic guitar, just like I mentioned earlier. However, not so much once the drums kick in. And then we get some of that CD flatness that I was talking about. I don't feel that on the LP. You feel the impact of the drums hitting a lot more on the LP. But in spite of that, I would say that overall, I think this track benefits and sounds more beautiful on the CD. In fact, as I compared these two, I found myself thinking back to my comparison of the remix of George Harrison's All Things Must Pass versus the original mix. Oftentimes, I found that the remix of All Things Must Pass was more intimate sounding. But in the process, it lost a lot of the mystical quality that was in the original stereo mix. The remix of Mother Nature's Son on vinyl sounds and feels more intimate, but the CD version has a certain mystical quality that makes me, for the most part, prefer it over the LP version, although both sound really good. Next we have Everybody's Got Something to Hide, except for me and my monkey.
Everybody's got something to hide, except for me and my monkey.
And just like with your blues, I found that at higher volumes, the electric guitar opening was at times a bit more shrill on the CD, but much better balanced on the LP. And again, I noticed less of this when I brought their volumes down to more respectable levels. I felt this way about Helter Skelter as well. So let me briefly talk about this track, which is another favorite of mine off this album.
Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter.
The brighter CD sound definitely plays well into the distorted and aggressive guitars used on this track. It also adds to the menace of the song. And if you followed these videos, like for instance, the Judas Priest one I did, I have at times have said that sometimes metal sounds better on CD than on LP. But then again, it just depends. It can vary. However, though, the LP gives me more of that I'm rocking out in front of the stage of a small and sweaty nightclub on a Friday night kind of vibe. Again, it's at times like these where it really comes down to personal preference. Neither one is better or worse in my opinion. They're just different experiences. This brings me to one of what I refer to as the more disturbing tracks off of the White Album, and that's Long, Long, Long.
It's been a long, long.
Now, just like Mother Nature's Son, this track seems to fare better on CD during its quieter passages. And yet, when the drum hits in at around the 40-second mark, it hits with more impact on the LP. This is not the first time I've said this. I will also add that that string scrape at the end of the track gave me, well, I should say it had a much more visceral impact on the LP version when compared to the CD. Now, one track that I really thought I would not bother with was Revolution number 9.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
But as I got more into this episode, I found myself finding the prospect of comparing these two to be irresistible. So I have to say that without a doubt, Revolution number 9 works better on CD. This is because I can hear its numerous audio collage elements with more clarity on the CD version. And for me, at least, this works better because it allows my brain to visualize the very surreal images that this track invokes inside of me a whole lot better whenever I listen to it. So now let's just end with the album's closing track, which is Good Night.
Good night, sleep tight.
Just like Mother Nature's Sun and Long, 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 Good Night benefits from the brighter sound of the CD and feels more magical and more beautiful on CD than it does on vinyl. This doesn't mean it doesn't sound good on vinyl. Of course it sounds good. But I find that in a back-to-back comparison, the CD sounds just a little bit better on this track. Overall, I found that for the most part, the album's heavier tracks, the more rocking songs, fare better on the LP, especially when cranked up, whereas the softer, more orchestral, or more acoustic tracks seem to fare better on CD. The CD version of the White Album remix is definitely brighter sounding. And aside from the few examples that I have brought up here, I don't think those highs are shrill or unpleasant. But personally, I do find myself preferring the deeper, more bassier sound. Is that a word, bassier? Oh well. But I prefer that in the LP version, in most cases. Now, I know that many people prefer brighter. And when I listen to the CD version, I enjoy it. But when I compare it to the LP version of the same song, I get more of that I'm in the room with the band vibe. It's this bassier sound that I experience on the vinyl that, to my ears, makes the walking electric guitar lines played underneath the vocals of Sexy Sadie feel warmer and also more like a real guitar coming out of a real amplifier. At times, the CD offers more clarity. But on the LP, the band feels more like a band. Again, these are just my observations. This is just my experience. Your experiences may vary, which is why I'd really like for you to share your experiences if you've ever compared these back to back. Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'm very interested in reading what you have to say about it. But whether you listen to this on CD or on vinyl, at the end of the day, what's most important is that you're enjoying it, that you enjoy the music, that you treasure the music, and that it impacts you. Whatever format you listen to, vinyl, CD, cassette tape, it doesn't matter. What matters is your experience and your enjoyment. Anyways, those are my thoughts, and I'll be interested in hearing yours. As always, if you like what I do here, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. And now I want to thank my patron supporters who are helping me to make more videos. If you'd like to be a patron supporter, you will get exclusive weekly videos that are not available here on the channel. Go to patreon.com/TJR the original and make a monthly pledge. If you can't make a monthly pledge, if you can't make a donation of any type, that's okay, I understand. You can show your support by just clicking like on these videos, sharing them with anybody you think might be interested in them, and watching them to the very end. Anyways, that's it for this edition of CD versus Vinyl. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. And I just want to thank everybody for watching and for joining me here today. It means a lot. And I wish you just a great holiday season. Take care.